Only Murders in the Building is back with Season 5, and following what was a very interesting season of the show last year, with the rhythm that the show's established, just a mere 1 year later, the show is back with 3 brand new episodes. Focusing on the mysterious death of Lester, the doorman that has been a staple character, the first 3 episodes introduced us to a wide array of suspects, established the background with the failing mafia in New York City, and they also showed that the police could well be involved in the deaths too, or at least the cover-up. So with that, let's take a look at the first 3 episodes, the clues, and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is Only Murders in the Building, Season 5, Episodes 1 to 3, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The Ending Explained. When it came to the ending of the episode, the backdrop of the mafia had been at the front and center of the story. With Lester originally working with the mafia when he was working at the Arconia, specifically Nick Cacciamilio, who was inviting people to the Velvet Room, which was located underneath the hotel. It was a functioning casino for where members of the mafia would go to on a regular basis. They'd play, lose a bit of money, and also win a bit of money as well. And with Lester being the person that was letting everybody in on the sly, this was something that could have been connected to his death. During these episodes, we also saw that Sofia Cacciamilio's husband, Nick, was found dead in the dry cleaners that they owned, and when the police found the body, they were prepared to cover up the death and pin it on the Caputo family, which I'm imagining is another mob-type group. The police dictating and forging the narrative around the deaths is something that shows that they're corrupt in some way, as that's what they also did with Lester, saying that there were no suspicious circumstances, even though he was laying in a fountain full of blood in the most murderous hotel in New York City. So this showed that the police force are involved and are most likely being paid off for their silence. Whilst it seemed like it could have been the mafia that were involved in the death and could have been paying the police force off, as is usually the case in the movies and TV series. With the mafia being in a state of failing, especially the Cacciamilio family, and with the Caputo family getting the blame for Nick's death when it wasn't them, it feels like this could all be connected to the billionaires that were essentially the new powerhouses and leading figures of the city underworld. This was Sebastian Steed, Jay Flug, and Camilla White. Jay did have a missing finger after all, and one of them was found attached to the wedding shrimp, so he was definitely there on the night that they died. Maybe the Caputo family are the final mafia family that are standing in the way of total control. I reckon Nick and Jay probably got into some kind of argument that night, and I'm predicting maybe Nick took Jay's finger over a fallout in the casino, as the material of the table was found under both of their nails. So I wonder if that's what's happened, and then that could be what led to Nick ending up being killed, as some kind of revenge. After all, the businessmen and women are the ones to now be fearful of. With Lester originally being associated with Nick as well, I wonder if he was targeted through association. There was a focus on him being considered a part of Old New York, as he was a doorman, and with the mafia being Old New York too and being taken out, I wonder if him being out of the equation meant that there was space and room for this new era to come through. The importance of Episode 2. When it came to Episode 2 of the show, which was titled After You, the phrase that Lester would always say to the tenants, it felt like the main purpose of this episode was to show how the doormen were the people that didn't really get noticed and would often drift into the background. However, even though they'd sit there, they'd observe and they'd be fully aware of all that was going on. Lester would do a lot for all of the tenants. He knew what moods they were in based on how they were acting and was always there for them when they needed him. However, in being a doorman, he was often overlooked and was taken for granted. The title of the episode pretty much summed up Lester's life, After You. He was always after somebody else, and nobody ever really held the door open for him, and even when he'd put in his dues and wanted to retire, he wasn't able to because Nick didn't let him. I wonder if Lester's observant state was the very thing that ultimately landed him in the position where he was dead in the fountain. We know that Lester wanted to retire and spend more time with his wife, but that initial desire to make more money and to live a different kind of life back in the day, ultimately giving up on his hopes and dreams of being an actor and staying as a doorman was how he was going to spend the rest of his days due to being told that he couldn't leave. So I wonder if Lester tried to force somebody's hand in order to get that freedom that he desired, and it cost him his entire life. Episode 2 was a strong episode because not only did it give us the backstory to Lester and also the understanding understanding of the mafia and his connection with Nick, but it also showed us the full circle lifespan of the doorman, with Randall being introduced with his hopes and dreams just like Lester had all of those years ago. It was a great episode and was probably my favourite of the three. The character themes. The individual feelings and emotions that the characters have this time round is something that was instantly clear to see. For example, Charles's one is the most obvious. He's fearful of the fact that he's going to die alone, and he worries that with him getting older, he's questioning if he's achieved all that he could, and if the people that he cared about were going to eventually be able to function without him. He thought this with Mabel, with her moving into her apartment and becoming more established, and also with Oliver, with him being married to Loretta and feeling like he doesn't need him around as much. Charles hallucinating and seeing Nick's dead body speaking with him and saying how that was going to be him, but he'd die alone and not with a loving wife or family was telling of his mindset. So that's something that's definitely going to be getting explored throughout the season. When it came to Mabel, we saw her not really having a sense of belonging in the previous season, and within this one we saw that she finally felt like she was becoming a bit more of an established person, with her having her apartment, injecting personality into it, and focusing solely on the podcast. However, when Althea, who was known as Thea, arrived at the Arconia, somebody who Mabel herself said that she brought out the worst in her, we then saw Mabel start to question that stability and sense of pride that she'd finally been able to give herself. Thea was one of the top streamed artists, and Mabel's podcast was in the top 20, already making her feel inferior. And then as well, Mabel had a studio apartment whilst Althea had the penthouse. So Mabel felt like she was being looked down on in a metaphorical and a physical sense. This is something that I feel we'll also see her battling with throughout the season, and we might end up seeing some conflict between the two former friends. Then with Oliver, I think he's looking for that sense of belonging within the Arconia, and also to not be viewed as a villain and like a selfish individual. With regards to the Lester situation, he was feeling sentimental and was worried that the last thing Lester would have thought of him would have been him moaning about the shrimp. Plus, he also never stopped to take a photo with him. So I think we could see Oscar looking to be a bit more helpful in this season, and it seems like that might well happen, especially with him taking Randall under his wing. My review of the first 3 episodes. I thought the show returned with full force and showed us exactly why it's the successful show that it is. It served us up an original story that's got trickles of established genres and stereotypical mobster tropes throughout it, whilst adding humour and setting up the murder mystery in the best way possible. We knew about Lester through the show, but I thought giving him the entirety of the second episode as a dedicated backstory was something that was really needed, and I thought it was the strongest episode of the 3. The twist on the mafia being old New York and no longer running it, and the billionaires being the new mobsters, so to speak, is an interesting angle, and I think it's an exciting one to watch unfold. When it comes to the humour in the show, that's something that never fails to deliver. It's Martin and Short. They have funny bones and their blood oozes pure laughter, so that's something I'm never really concerned about. One critique I do have a little bit is with Selena Gomez. I usually really like her performance, but I thought this one just felt a little stale and like there wasn't that much emotion in what she was saying. It all just felt a bit monotone and like there wasn't much to it. I imagine it'll get better as the weeks go on, but she definitely felt like the weak link out of the main 3. For me, I think this has the potential to be better than Season 4. Season 3 is my favourite, but I think this could quite comfortably be better than what we got last year. Also, Christoph Waltz being in this show is a great steal, and it's a character that I'm already really excited to see have a larger inclusion. He's a great actor, so I'm glad they got him in the show. As premieres go, I personally think we could have just had the 2 episodes. I don't necessarily think we needed 3, but I'm not going to complain about it because it meant we got more. Overall, I think it's nice to have this show back on our screens. It's the perfect blend of an interesting, serious, and engaging story, but it's got this humour at its core that just never fails to make me laugh out loud with some of its moments, so I'm excited to see what's going to happen. So, there you have it. Only Murders in the Building Season 5, Episodes 1 to 3, ending explained.